And I'd like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to have my voice heard today. My whole family and I have been very ill with ME/CFS for 23 years. We first became ill in 1987. I was the first to become ill. At the time, I was very athletic and an A-B student. I was a finalist in the Junior Olympics in the 100-meter dash for all of New England and a captain of my high school football team. My life was good. My life was great. Then one day, one moment, my whole life changed. During a race, I suddenly could barely move. I felt I was always going to collapse. Soon thereafter, I was diagnosed with mono and the chickenpox. This illness then spread to my brother, who was 12, and then quickly to my mother, who was 53. Then within 2 months, it spread to my sister, who was 30, who did not live with us but visited, and my father, who I visited and was 53. I was bedridden for almost a year. My brother was hospitalized. We were all diagnosed with CFS, except for my father, who refused to complain to a doctor. I've been lucky to regain some functioning, finish high school and college in 6 years, and have worked as able. My brother remains completely disabled. He could not attend college and cannot work. I would like to point out at this time, I'm not the victim of child abuse. I've never been abused as a child. There's no connection with that. And 2, I'm adopted, so I do not feel genetic susceptibility is a likely explanation for why we all have CFS ME in my family. I've met my biological family, and none have ME/CFS. I would also like to add that I firmly believe a lot more men have ME/CFS than is recognized. It did not discriminate against my brother and I for being male. I believe men are afraid to come forward and complain to doctors about this illness. For this reason, I feel it may not be appropriate for it to be placed in the Office of Women's Health or be portrayed as a woman's disorder. I wish I could say I thought the devastation of this illness ended with the 5 of us, but I have had 2 children and both have high-functioning autism. Don't ask me how I know, call it parents' intuition, but I really feel that my CFS is really connected to their condition. I've also talked with several CFS parents who either have children with CFS or children with high-functioning autism. CFS parents, if their children had a spectrum diagnosis, I received 12 replies, 6 said yes. I believe there's a link between CFS and high-functioning autism. I feel a study really needs to be done on the health of CFS parents' children and a possible connection with autism and passed down ME/CFS illness. The funding level is abysmal for our disease. The CDC estimates 1 to 4 million people have CFS and is very disabling. Why is it being funded by the NIH at about the same level as hay fever and given less funding than psoriasis? No one with hay fever or psoriasis are bedridden or committing suicide because their disease is unbearable. Why won't the government fund the 5 centers of excellence the CFS repeatedly recommends? Why are there no large-scale RFAs from the NIH for CF research? And finally, why has the WPI received no new federal money since the science paper? I've heard that $10 million was just given to the study the health effects of the Gulf oil spill on people. Are we not a crisis that deserves immediate funding also? Why are we not worthy of our government of large-scale funding when so many are disabled? I also do not feel trust towards the CDC to conduct honest, unbiased research. Through the years, the CDC has abused ME/CFS patients, from the initial horrible name of chronic fatigue syndrome to labeling the Lake Tahoe outbreak as hysteria, to most recently Dr. Reed's response to the science paper in the New York Times. If we validate it, great. My expectation is we will not. With biased statements like these, it was not surprising to me when the CDC did not find XMRV in their study. I am also very upset by the constant insinuations of contamination being levied to the media by Myra McClure and others at the WPI, especially those from England, where they lock up their patients in psychiatric hospitals and let them die. To those who keep throwing out the contamination insinuations to the WPI and the science study in the low odds paper, I have both questions and comments. 1. The Lombardi Group's XMRV findings were confirmed in multiple labs. It was not just the WPI that found positives. It was also the NCI and the Cleveland Clinic. The human body cannot make antibodies to a contaminant. The low Alter study showed mutations over 15 years in patients. And 4th, why would CFS patients' blood be contaminated in a lab at 67% and 87% respectively in the studies, with 4% and 7% in controls? Why so massive a difference between patients and controls if XMRV is a contaminant in these studies?
You have about a minute, Mr. Baker.
Yes. Would they not be contaminated evenly? I would also like to remind everyone that Mr. Alter said, quote, "We have confirmed the Lombardi Group's findings." I would like this committee to send an invitation to Dr. Alter to have him explain why he is stating this at the next CFSAC meeting. Also, why is it when XMRV is found in prostate cancer, people are not screaming contamination, but in CFS it becomes a huge issue? Moving on, I would like to say it is time for clinical trials. CFS patients are trying drugs on their own because they are sick and desperate. They feel every day like it is the last 2 months of their life. It is unrealistic to ask them to wait to try different drugs. Would it not be safer to have these patients supervised in clinical trials by experts in the field of these medicines? Also, I believe it is time ambulances becomes available to us. We have been waiting 20 years. Please, FDA, will you finally approve this drug? I believe it can save lives. Even if one drug was approved for ME/CFS by the FDA, it would also have the effect of legitimizing our illness to the public, as Lyrica has done for fibromyalgia. My last point I'll make is, please, the government, I'm imploring you, ban us from giving blood immediately, indefinitely. If the government is afraid to admit we may have a contagious virus, then just do as the UK has done and say you are doing it to protect patients' health. But please do it as the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand has done. Do not let us give blood. Asking, are you healthy today, is not enough to protect patients' or recipients' health. If I still have time, I would like to say...
I need you to wrap up, please, sir.
I really think the next meeting should... someone higher up in the government, like Secretary Sebelius, Director Fauci, Director Collins, should be made to sit in at these meetings and be held accountable for what's going on with our illness. That's all I can say. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to next call Pat Farrow.